Imagine a city made of timber and thatch, densely packed with narrow streets, all sitting under a dry late summer sky. Now imagine a single spark turning this bustling metropolis into an inferno. This is the story of the Great Fire of London, a disaster that obliterated the medieval city in just a few days, but also laid the groundwork for the modern London we know today. In this video, we'll delve into the causes, the chaos, and the ultimate rebirth that followed one of the most catastrophic fires in history. In 1666, London was a city ripe for disaster. The streets were narrow, the buildings were made mostly of wood, and there was no organized fire brigade to control blazes. It was a time when open flames were used for heating, lighting, and cooking, making the risk of fire ever present. The summer of 1666 had been particularly dry, leaving the wooden structures even more susceptible to catching fire. As the city slept on the night of September 2nd, a small bakery on Pudding Lane would become the unlikely source of a catastrophic event. The fire started in the early hours of September 2nd in the bakery of Thomas Fariner, King's Baker. It's believed that an ember from the bakery's oven ignited some firewood. Within minutes, flames were out of control. With the buildings packed so closely together, fire spread rapidly from house to house. The strong winds that night fanned the flames, pushing the fire through the city with terrifying speed. Despite initial efforts to control the fire, it quickly became apparent that the blaze was beyond anyone's control. The primitive firefighting methods of the time, which relied heavily on fire hooks and buckets of water, were no match for the inferno. By the morning of September 3rd, the fire had consumed much of the area surrounding Pudding Lane and was advancing toward the heart of the city. As the fire raged, panic spread throughout London. People fled their homes, carrying whatever belongings they could salvage. The streets were choked with refugees, carts, and livestock as the flames continued to consume everything in their path. On September 4th, the fire reached the iconic St. Paul's Cathedral. This grand structure, which had stood for over 500 years, was engulfed in flames, its wooden roof collapsing as the fire tore through it. The fire's destruction was not limited to buildings. London's infrastructure, including its bridges and marketplaces, was also heavily damaged. The fire spread over 436 acres, destroying more than 13,000 homes, 87 churches, and countless businesses. The economic impact was devastating, with many Londoners losing their homes and livelihoods overnight. As the fire continued to rage, key figures emerged who would play crucial roles in the response and recovery. Samuel Pepys, a naval administrator and diarist, provides one of the most detailed accounts of the fire. His observations and quick thinking, including advising King Charles II to order the demolition of buildings to create fire breaks, helped slow the spread of the flames. Sir Christopher Wren, an architect who would later become famous for rebuilding St. Paul's Cathedral, also played a role in the aftermath. Although his plans for a completely redesigned London were not fully realized, his influence on the city's reconstruction was significant. The decision to create fire breaks by pulling down buildings was a turning point in controlling the blaze. Although it was a drastic measure, it ultimately helped to stop the fire from spreading further, saving the western part of the city from total destruction. When the fire was finally extinguished on September 6th, London was a smoldering ruin. Over 100,000 people were left homeless, and the once thriving city was in ashes. But from the devastation came an opportunity for renewal. King Charles II and Parliament quickly set about the task of rebuilding London. New building regulations were introduced, mandating that structures be made of brick and stone instead of wood to prevent future fires. Sir Christopher Wren was tasked with designing the new St. Paul's Cathedral, along with several other churches. His work would come to define the architectural landscape of post-fire London. The streets were widened, and new fire prevention measures were implemented, including the establishment of a fire insurance system. The Great Fire of London also led to the development of the first organized fire brigade. The fire showed the need for a coordinated response to such disasters, and in the years that followed, efforts were made to improve firefighting techniques and equipment. The Great Fire of London was a tragedy of immense proportions, but it also marked a turning point in the city's history. From the ashes of the medieval city rose a new London, one that was more modern, more resilient, and better prepared for the challenges of the future. The fire's legacy can still be seen in the city's architecture, its streets, and in the very fabric of London itself. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of history's most significant fires. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories from the past. Let us know in the comments what historical events you'd like us to explore next. Until then, keep exploring the fascinating history that shapes our world.